Welcome to GracePoint. GracePoint is a global community of inspired, visionary thought leaders and students who know that the first step in healing the world is to fulfill their own personal potential, align with their unique life purpose, and unify in their vision for an abundant world for everyone. And now, here is the GracePoint podcast.
Hello and welcome to GracePoint Publishing Podcast. I'm Michelle Vandepass, and today I'm so thrilled. I've got Deanna Hansen with Unblock Your Body, how decompressing your fascia is the missing link in healing. Wanted to get that right. I love this book. I love the cover. I love your work. So what can I say? Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And I just want to thank you so much also for the journey that we've been on together. It for me, this was all very universal. Like it was like you were placed in front of me when I needed you, and the relationship continues. So I'm just thrilled for that.
Oh, me too. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I got to just, for people who don't know, the first thing you have to do is explain what the heck fascia is.
My pleasure. So fascia is the connective tissue connecting every single one of the cells in our body. And I have a very unique understanding of this tissue because for the last 25 years now, oh my gosh, plus 25 years, I've been working deeply in this tissue with my hands, starting on my own body and then transferring what I learned to patients. So it's really interesting because the way that I see it, it's almost as though fascia is the membrane of every single cell interconnecting every other cell. And it's the transmission of consciousness, of light, of everything that travels in and through the body. And the goal, from my perspective, of the fascia system is to ensure that every single cell in our body is properly aligned and to maintain its internal space. Because really, it's where the space is, where the magic happens. So over time, what happens to the body under the constant forces of gravity, unconscious posture, injuries, even surgeries that create scar tissue is we become dense and thick. And this dense, thick tissue blocks blood and oxygen flow to cells and also blocks the removal of waste from cells. So ultimately, I see this as being the real issue with how we are aging, because pain, fear, and stress cause us to reactively hold the breath. And it is through the breath, through proper diaphragmatic breathing, that we keep our cells filled with oxygen and light and buoyant, almost like a balloon filled with air. As long as that balloon is filled with air, it almost defies gravity. And we want every cell in the body to be light and buoyant so that we can glide through life, where what is actually happening is most people don't have a really strong connection to their diaphragm and they're breathing through the muscles of the upper chest. So the oxygen in our bodies has depleted significantly and our bodies have collapsed and they've become very sticky and twisted. So this is what's really causing aging as we know it, because pain, fear, and stress cause us to reactively hold the breath. We all know that the world is a very stressful place 24/7. So people intuitively have really stopped their connection to their breath and therefore the connection to feeding their bodies properly. Every single cell in the body requires oxygen to feed the fuel. So if we only have 20 or 30% of our cells actually receiving oxygen, it's almost as though we are carting around these heavy bodies as opposed to having these nice, light, fluid bodies that can move through time with grace.
Yeah, so you're talking about getting the oxygen into the cell. So in my head, it feels like it sort of expands the cell with light.
Yes.
So that all the other stuff can detox. So let's go back to fascia for just a minute. So if I'm like holding my arm, it's like under there. It's under there, right?
It's everywhere. It innervates bone, organ, skin, fat, ligament, muscle. So I don't see a differentiation in the body. And that's again where I think my perspective is quite unique. As an athletic therapist, I was trained to look at muscles and tendons and ligaments and all the things that get injured with activity, where the way that I see it, if you sprain your ankle, for example, it's not just the ligaments that are involved, it's everything. And there's blood vessels. Fascia innervates the blood vessels, the nerve fibers, absolutely everything is made up of this fascia. So we need to truly understand this tissue, the system in our body, and properly feed it so that we can actually move through time in our life without undergoing the negative effects of gravity and unconscious behavior, which, if we do that, the way that we age is very, very different.
Yeah, and you've been working on this a long time, and I know when you and I first started working together and you introduced this whole concept to me, part of what you teach is sort of laying on a block. I wish I had my block with me. It's at my house, but it's a block, a beautiful bamboo block that you lay on, and you breathe into it, right, and it opens your cells.
Yes.
It's an amazing process, and this book sort of explains how and why that works, I guess. Right?
It does. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
So really, it comes down to understanding scar tissue and adhesion, because there's three pillars to block therapy. And the first one is creating space. So because of gravity and all the things we just mentioned, we actually lose our internal space. We get shorter and wider as we get older. Ultimately, what we want to do is we want to keep our height, and we want to keep our size and shape the way it is meant to be. But because we collapse into ourselves, what we are taking away is that internal space. So the very first one is through the process of lying on the tool, connecting to the breath, and driving through the layers of fascia. By connecting with pain, we melt the adhesions, because ultimately pain equals restriction in the body. So when we can wrap our head around pain as well as a different language, as opposed to something to be afraid of and push away, the pain in the body is the baby crying. You wouldn't ignore your baby crying. You would embrace your baby. You would figure out what that cry means, and you would feed the baby whatever it is, whether it's love, changing a diaper, sleep, comfort. Our cells are the same.
Right? If the baby's
Exactly.
crying, it's just information, right? Just a short anecdote. Years and years and years ago, when I had some chronic pain, I journaled with that pain, right? And talked to the pain. And that's how I was able to get the information to release the pain. And that's kind of what you're talking about too. It's just information. And there's a lot of ways to release it. And you're suggesting through the fascia, through the breath, through connecting with the pain to release it.
Because what happens under that compression is we push away a bunch of our cells, and those cell membranes, they communicate with our brain to give us information in the moment. So if I'm sitting collapsed in front of a computer for 20, 30, 40 years, and I have literally shrunk in my size or in my height, there's a whole bunch of cells that aren't responding to what is going on in life. They're not receiving blood and oxygen flow, so they're also not sending signals to the brain. And that's where it gets really interesting, because then we connect into memory. And in this book, I actually share an anecdote where I was in that time, I was at the beginning of my yoga studies, and I loved the process I went through, because they made us be our own subjects. And one of the things that we had to do was become very aware and observe how we would feel in any given moment. So one of the things I was doing was walking through a mall, and I was in a great mood that day. And I'm walking, just enjoying myself, and I catch a glimpse of this man walking toward me, and he looks at me, and he has this look of disappointment in his eyes. And immediately, my gut just turned, and I felt anxiety. And because I was awake to this, I thought, what just happened? So the first thing was like, what did I do wrong? Did I upset this man or whatever? And then, I took a moment, and I'm like, there could be a whole bunch of reasons. We could have just caught each other's glimpse when he had a pain shot in his knee, or maybe that was just his expression. I mean, it's so funny how we fill in the gaps with our own story. So when we actually have all of our cells communicating with us, it creates a very different opportunity to be present in the moment and to see each moment as a unique experience in and of itself. So through the process of block therapy, it really is all about releasing those adhesions that are blocking the cells from flow, so that they can awaken and be part of our story and how we proceed forward into the future.
Yeah. And so the takeaway, part of the takeaway on that, is to kind of slow down and listen to yourself and not just take all this external stuff all the time, right? It's like, slow down, listen to what your own body's telling you.
And that's part of that whole process of the second pillar is the inflating that space through that component of proper diaphragmatic breathing. And we really focus on the exhalation phase because we have absorbed so much. Our fascia is like a big sponge and it's absorbing everything from the toxins to the negative emotions to your environment. Like whatever you're around becomes part of your makeup in that moment. So we want to clear that out so that we have clean space to bring in the oxygen, to connect to our creative gifts so that we can actually do what we're supposed to do here with this life, where most people are really flogged down with past memories, toxins. Again, like if let's say you're a hairdresser and you spent 10 years working in a salon with chemicals, your fascia has absorbed that. If you're in a toxic relationship, your fascia has absorbed that. Again, and then when you add in the injuries and the surgeries and all the other things, the unconscious postures, that just slows everything down. So basically, our fascia is this very cold, dry, brittle, sluggish system. When if it's working properly, it becomes this very light, fluid, warm system. We're really like a river. We want to be that free-flowing, fast, clean river where we're kind of like a meandering toxic river as we age. But we can change that, which is really exciting. We can undo that and we can bring that flow, that heat and that fluidity back into our body so that again we can move through time in a very graceful way with our bodies.
Yeah. And you give, you know, on your website and the book, you've got testimony and examples and people who've been, you know, cured. I don't think we're allowed to say that word, but of disease, right? They have experiences that helps them feel better and feel more alive and healthy and, you know, in their body. And so I'm just wondering, if you're feeling like you're compressed, you've got bad posture, or you're just feeling sluggish, is there like, do you have to like go through this process an hour a day for the rest of your life? Can you, right? It's like, how do we add one more thing to our life? It's like telling me to breathe. Okay, I got to add another practice in my life. So talk to me about how we can add this and not have it be more stress, because I'm going to let you talk here, but I got to say that 5 minutes on my block is like an hour of exercise for me. It is so relaxing. And so I'm going to preface it by saying, I don't think you need a lot of time to make a little difference, but I want to hear your real answer to that.
In fact, I always say to people, if you only have 5 minutes a day, lie on the tool and connect to that full diaphragmatic breath. And the reason is because when we breathe diaphragmatically, we feed the body up to 6 times the oxygen. So most people are breathing through the muscles of the upper chest because pain, fear, and stress cause us to reactively hold the breath. So we have been pulled away from this muscle that is actually designed to feed every single one of the cells in our body. So when we are lying on the tool, and for those out there, you can lie on a hardcover book, or if you've even have quite a bit of collapse and you have a rounded belly, simply lying on your belly on a floor and breathing into the floor. So it's a challenge for people initially because, like me, when I was younger, I was a dancer and I was always told, hold your stomach in. So when you hold your belly in, you're forced to breathe up here. Yet what we want to do is we want to have a dynamic belly so we can make our belly big on purpose and we can make it small on purpose. And then we're constantly working the abdomen, the abdominal muscles through the process of proper diaphragmatic breathing. So we can be doing exercise all day long by becoming conscious breathers. And in fact, that's how our body is designed to breathe. But because we're so far away from the posture to support that, we've become these upper chest breathers. So again, 6 times the oxygen is a huge amount. And it's not because we're pulling 6 times the air into the lungs. It's because it's at the base of the lungs where the majority of the oxygen receptor sites reside. as well as where the majority, when we're upright, of the blood flow is. So that's where the absorption happens. So if we're breathing through the muscles of the upper chest, we're not even bringing the air deeply enough into the lungs for that absorption. Also, in 2014, they did a study in Australia proving 84% of weight loss comes through proper exhalation. So to me, that was one of the most wonderful studies they could have shared, because it's through the breath that we remove the toxins from the body. And for somebody like me who, before this journey began for me, I was 50 pounds overweight. I was not eating a lot. I was working out like a fiend, and I was getting bigger. So it was almost like I defied, like the whole rules of weight loss didn't apply to me. And why not? I mean, I'm working hard. But then I started to really understand this through this process. And when the study happened years after this journey began for me, it really shared the science behind the reason, because every single exhalation is an opportunity to detoxify the body. But most people have such a small amount of an exhalation. If you even tell somebody new to breathing, take a full breath, they'll take a nice deep in breath, but they'll just kind of push out a little bit. And then we keep pulling in, but we don't release properly. So when we make that exhalation the focus, it's a game changer in how we oxygenate the body, but also it connects us to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is why people feel calm right away. So that in itself changes the tension inside the body. And when talking about weight loss, because again, that was my journey, I really see the issue as compression from collapse and the resultant ballooning. And then because of that, we become toxic because our flow is stagnant. So if we don't have a nice high flow, and like if we're not that clean, fluid, fast flowing river, we become the meandering river that has pockets of algae because there's blockages and it has all these issues. And that becomes the diseases in the future to us. So it's really important to understand what we want for fascia is we want heat, we want flow, and we want alignment. And that is the third pillar of block therapy, is proper foundations. So we create the space, we inflate the space, and then we maintain the space. And then your body becomes really efficient. So even if you do have an injury, or even if you do have a week where you're on holidays and you might be, eating and drinking more than what your body is normally used to, it's efficient at getting back to its neutral place and healthy place, because your systems are already turned on. I live here in Winnipeg in Canada, and it's like we're in the middle of winter right now. So if your car's been sitting outside, you've got to warm it up for 20 minutes before you're going to drive. And we don't want that to be the situation in the body. We want the body to be ready to go all the time. And with the proper breath, that's how we do that.
Right. Not get up out of bed and shuffle and feel like, ache and creak, right? So I want to go back to the breath for a minute, because in yoga, often you're taught all different kinds of breathing, depending what kind of yoga you take. But one of the things is you breathe in for, say, 5 counts, and then breathe out for 5 counts. Are you talking about the same measure in and out?
Actually, I often have people breathe in for 4 and out for 6. And then after that full exhalation, take a moment in that space of no breath before engaging the inhalation, because the diaphragm is a muscle. It moves up and down in the body. When we inhale, it moves down. When we exhale, it moves up. So it becomes this pump that will give the internal organs, the heart, the lungs, this continual massage if we're working it properly. And that's really the key. That's what's going to keep our internal area nice and heated. We want to be massaging these organs. For people that have stomach problems, the diaphragm sits right on top of the stomach organ. So first of all, most people don't chew properly. They swallow food somewhat whole. And most people aren't breathing, which that movement of the diaphragm gives the added energy for digestion. So we're swallowing whole food and we're frozen in the container that it's going into. And we wonder why we have issues with guts, with absorption, absorbing nutrients, with breaking down fats, all of these things. Because even for the liver, the gallbladder, one of the jobs of the liver is to clean the blood. But the fats are getting clogged in the liver. Fatty liver disease is on the rise big time. And it's because this organ has become cold. So butter at room temperature is a solid. You heat it up, it becomes liquid. We need to melt the fats inside the body. But at the end of the day, if we're not breathing from the right place, our organs are cold. So they're not able to do their job as they're designed to do.
Yeah. That's such a good way of putting it. And I just like having a couple of things that people can take away from this. Yeah, while they're waiting for their book to arrive or before they get on Kindle to buy it or audio to listen to it. And one of the things that's really easy to do is that 4-6 breath count. Right. You can just start with that. So I appreciate that. What's next for you? You've written this book. You have a whole community of people online. You teach people how to lead classes in this and be therapists in this. Talk to me about your community and what's next for you and your community.
My community is truly the life breath, I feel, of this practice, because for years, as I was developing this, I would have people asking for the research. And research isn't something that's really easy to just get, you don't just get research. So through my attempts that failed years ago, I decided I don't personally care about the research. I know what this does. I want to make sure that if people are open to this work, they have the work. So in my community now, my private Facebook community, Block Therapy community, there's 4,000 members in there. And what is so lovely is they are sharing what's happening. So for me, for example, I have my own set of issues and the injuries and all the problems that I personally have as an individual, but I don't have things that other people have, say like fibromyalgia. So for me to be, I'm not an expert on fibromyalgia. The person that has done block therapy to get rid of their issues with fibromyalgia are the experts. And so it's lovely because people can ask questions to the community. So people that have had their real experiences get to share and help guide and support. And it is such a beautiful place to be. It is so warm, and I'm thrilled with the community. We also have a university. So we do teach people how to teach this to their communities, as well as to become therapists in this, where we get photos of people and we can see cause sites, because where people have pain is the pain site, but that's not what's causing the pain. There's going to be cause sites and pain sites in the body, and we can see it visually in the fascia, the way that the fascia will twist and hook. For example, something like cellulite. The fascia is here literally to support and protect us. And one of the goals of the fascia is to keep us upright and to keep us aligned. So if we're not supporting that process through understanding proper foundations and proper breathing, and we start collapsing and we're all dominant on one side, so we basically age in a forward rotational direction, our bodies are twisting away from balance. So the fascia will grip and adhere to bone and other structures to maintain stability. And energy moves in waves and spirals. So these grips occur in a spiral fashion. So here's the dimple of the cellulite. So people don't like the appearance of it, but more importantly, from my perspective, it's an indicator that now you have blockage to cells on the other side. And back to your comment about curing disease, I don't actually believe in disease. I believe there are blocks in the fascia system stopping certain tissue from being properly fed and clean. So they will arise with a symptom. And if that tissue happens to be an organ or a muscle or whatever it is, symptoms are going to arise based on that tissue not receiving what it needs to be properly fed and clean. So I lost track.
Okay. So much to talk about. So you
There's
get
so much.
the Facebook community. You
Right.
teach people to become therapists. You've got this book, Unblock Your Body, but you've also got other books out, at least a couple, 1-2 more books out there.
Yeah. And my next passion project is Block Therapy Academy for Kids. So this is something I've wanted for a very, very long time, but there is a time and a place for everything to get developed and happen. And I see the youth today being in a lot of turmoil because they are growing up in front of screens, where you and I adopted screens as adults once we were fully grown. When you're growing up in a compressed forward way, that's impacting everything. And the amount of scoliosis I'm seeing, the issues, the mental struggles and challenges kids are having, I really see it all being a function of them not connecting properly to their breath. So we are in the developmental stages now of getting this Block Therapy Academy for Kids underway. And my goal is that we launch the beginning stages of it in the fall. So
Wow.
there's a lot of stuff going on, and I'm just so thrilled. And I just actually had a wonderful podcast this morning with Dr. L, the parent whisperer, who I've been on some of his podcasts, and he's incredible. And he's going to be an active participant in that as well.
That's fantastic. So is there a book coming out, Unblock for kids? Maybe we should talk about that.
Maybe we should.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay, we've got to wrap this up. Tell me what one question I forgot to ask was.
Oh, one question you forgot to ask. I would love to address the immune system, being that it is such a thing today.
Right.
So I really do believe that our body, when given what it needs, has the capacity to be stronger than anything out there. And it really does come to that proper exhalation, because that is how we keep the body clean and we keep it fed. So with the process of block therapy, one of the reasons why it is so impactful on the breath is because it releases the adhesions, blocking that diaphragmatic muscle from moving properly. And within one class, people in our community will share the difference in their ability to take a deep breath and how calm they feel. So from the perspective of health today, connecting into your body and understanding the system and your breath is, in my opinion, the most powerful way to combat anything that we have to deal with. Also, to come at it from a very calm-centered place. So no matter what, it's time for self-care. Like we really need to let the noise go. We need to start giving ourselves the time and attention that they require, and not through force, through persuasion. This can be done in a bed, and I do most of my blocking in bed, and it's lovely because you don't have to do anything. You just put it underneath you somewhere. I mean, we've got so many programs and things to follow, but It doesn't have to be that either to be effective. It really is about melting those adhesions, connecting to your breath, and being present. And it's beautiful and it's fast. And that's the great thing. And no matter if you're coming for the perspective of chronic pain, anti-aging, if you have a disease, if you want to improve your size and shape, all of it comes down to the fascia system. So just diving in a little bit and understanding this process is impactful on every level for every age.
Wow, I love that. Thank you. Again, the book is Unblock Your Body, How Decompressing Your Fascia is the Missing Link in Healing. Deanna Hansen's my guest, and I want to get your website right. Would you share it? What is it?
Blocktherapy.com.
Blocktherapy.com. I'm so used to saying unblock, and I knew that one. Blocktherapy.com. You can get the book anywhere books are sold. By the time this podcast is released, I hope the Audible book will be out, Kindle, available on Amazon, but every bookstore around the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you for listening to Grace Point. We invite you to join our global community of inspired visionary thought leaders and students who know that the first step in healing the world is to fulfill their own personal potential, align with their unique life purpose, and unify in their vision for an abundant world for everyone. And remember to subscribe on iTunes to the show so that you can get further episodes. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you next time on the next episode of Grace Point.